Hi everyone. So this video is on how to respond to revision plans to show you the process. This is at least what I do. It's not necessarily the best way to do it, but it's been working for me. So first I go to this revision report or the revision plan that the students are asked to create from the feedback they received. And you can see here that this green dot means that this student has submitted their revision plan, has shared it with me, the instructor. This blue means that I've given them feedback on their revision plan. After I do that, I send them an email to let them know it's ready because Eli doesn't have an email notification system set up yet. They're working on it. And then this green dot means that they have done the revision and resubmitted their writings. So that means they've completed their resubmission, which is the end of the write, review, revise cycle. So I'm going to show you how I do this with a plan that I have not looked at all yet. When I click on the student's name, you can see it takes me to the summary page where I have the original writing task, the feedback the person received, and the revision plan. So I start with the revision plan because I want to see what the person prioritized and what the comments were. So this student's revision plan is pretty straightforward, and this is what they've looked like so far since we're on our first revision. So we have some pretty helpful comments that the student has noted what they intend to do with, and I agree with the student in this case. There's my email ding. He hasn't made a lot of notes, but I think that this is probably going to be pretty good. So I say this without having seen his draft, which I'm about to look at. So next I want to see if he got reviews that were helpful that he didn't include. Oh, he got an endorsed comment, nice. And he did include it in his revision plan. Okay, so these comments were mostly just describing what people saw, which is something I asked them to do. And it looks like he's made some good choices in adding the comments that give him suggestions. So I don't have any comments for him on how he used the comments or on how he's rated the comments. He's a little generous, but that's okay. Now I'm going to look at his writing task and see how on target the reviewers were. All right, and his writing is also pretty typical of the way his classmates have responded to this task. So far I agree with the reviews he got that he does need to elaborate a little more on his key terms. And the same thing here. This one is also really helpful, and one reason I endorsed it is that it points out something he did well. So that helps him see what he was doing well. Maybe he can apply that to his first paragraph. His second paragraph, as you saw, was not really a paragraph. So when I go in, I'm going to make my notes. I'm going to refer to his draft one more time. Something I see students do a lot is that they'll say what good writing is here, and they don't realize that these are actually, they're not key words, but they are phrases or they're terms that they can elaborate on. So they often don't realize that whatever they put here are their key terms. And then he's got a lot here. It's important, it's organized, it flows well, it's free from errors, it has a point, it's interesting, and the author is proud of it. That's a lot. And then there's a target audience too. So I agree that he needs to expand on this, or at least maybe say how these things relate to each other, because there's a lot here. And I definitely agree with his reviewers that this is his most developed paragraph. So in my response, I'm just going to come right here and write him a little letter. So I'm basically trying to get him to work a little more on those first two paragraphs. And you see that I agree with his peers' feedback. I want to tell them right away whether I agree with the feedback and how they've used it. That's another thing I want to say is I want to tell them what I think about their notes on revision, whether I think they've pretty much got it right, or whether I think that they needed to include some other notes that they didn't. So far, everyone has done a good job of including the most important comments. And then this has been common, that people will have a lot of key terms, but they don't really define them very well, or they don't really say how they're related. And then one more thing is I want to echo that note of praise. So I'm just agreeing, and I'm doing this in part because I want him to trust his peers' responses, and not just look to me as the arbiter of what's good or bad. And I'll have to do this a lot for him to really trust his peers. Let's see. I cannot type. And you might also notice that I'm using a lot of language like I notice or I see. That's described language, and I want them to use that themselves. So I'm really conscious when I'm making these comments that trying to give them phrases that they can pick up. So I'm trying to model this overtly. And I got to turn the email ding off at some point. Then I usually use a little concluding comment here. Let's see. And there we go. It's basically a short letter or email note. I saved my note. Sometimes I want to go back and revise it, and it'll let me edit or revise it, which is nice. And then I'll go right to my email and send him an email and say, hey, my feedback is ready for you on Eli. Please take a look at it. And then he can make the revisions and submit his writing. So I do this for everyone, and you see like just how long that took. That was something I'd never looked at that student's writing before, so this is an actual complete run through where I didn't do this beforehand. So you saw that in real time. Hopefully this is helpful. Obviously, if you have lots of students, this can be really time consuming. But again, I don't read their drafts, and I'm just looking at the data they generate on their reviews. So, and I do read through the comments, but it's more of a skim than a read, and I'm just looking for endorsements and whether or not their star rating system is working the way that it should. And if it isn't, I often will say that in this revision plan feedback. So this is how this works. It's not taken me a whole lot of time so far, even though this is the first round of commenting, and that usually takes the most time. It's a pretty easy assignment, and it's pretty short. So it hasn't been a huge time suck yet. All right, we can talk more about this as the semester proceeds. Hopefully this is a helpful video. I'll see you later.